I'm staring outside. Emptiness is slowly creeping up into my life, but I'll watch the sun hide behind everything. Horizons just kind of untangle me, but they'll never see me cry. I know the light was always blinding, but running for the hills is always better than unwinding this castle of loneliness is all I can remember. I'm planning my escape in mid-December. I come back to that window in the dead of night. There's a light that likes to flicker barely out of sight. The shadows in the courtyard seem to come alive, and they're waiting for the day my fears and heart collide. I'm clawing to get out like God, you'll never know, but I'm broken down. They all just make me feel alone. I'm not the one they'll ever come to truly know, so I'll sneak out. Though God is probably freezing cold. Whoa. Do I carry it right? The person in the mirror just wants to run and hide. Well, I'm dying in the silence of every single error I've ever told in confidence, until I'm out of fight. I'll try looking for a hand to hold, but summer's getting older and I never got the time to grow eyes. Reaching up the world and watch my windpipe. They all just like to hide behind their inside. It was March 18th. We had a big fight. You left in a huff, woke up in the middle of the night. Think it was all a dream, but I looked over my shoulder and you weren't there. And for the first time in my life, I was cold. Without you there, old. Just a moment there. I thought we were for life, my dear. That's what you told me every year. Holding my hand so tight, thinking our future's bright. But I never felt abandoned man quite like that night, that lonely night.
Hello there, and welcome to another UFN music stream. I am John, the guitarist from the band UFN. Hold up, let me get the camera centered. I'm gonna have to move it around a little bit just so you guys can see what I'm doing here. For those of you that don't know, we are on our 4th week right now of giving guitar lessons for our new album, This Is Temporary. We're going track by track. I've already gone through 4 songs. I stuffed an extra one into last week. But yeah, so I'm the guitarist from the band. If you don't know us, we're basically a pop punk band out of California, like right in the middle of California. If you think LA's way down south, and then up north it's all Oregon and Washington. That's just, they can have it. If we could separate as a state, they can have North California. Take Humboldt, I don't care. All right, different culture. But right in the middle, right around like San Francisco latitude, that's where we are. We're kind of to the east a little bit, on the east side of the bay. And yeah, we've been going for like 4 or 5 years, and I've basically had the ability to grow with these guys. And I think the track that we have today is a great example of that. So the track that we're doing today is Mirror Mirror. Let me go ahead and bring me closer a little bit. And as you can see up in the corner there, we have a little chord chart that I'm going to do, that I'm going to reference throughout the lesson. But I'm going to teach you guys the song. We're going to listen to it first, and then I'm going to teach you guys a rhythm guitar part that can be played on a 6-string. And then I'm going to teach you the lead guitar part, which is designed for my 7-string. I play on a 7-string exclusively, just because if we play like Paramore or Sugar, Fall Out Boy, like Sugar We're Going Down, a lot of pop punk songs, even Green Day, they all down tune at least a half step, or they'll go drop D, or they'll be like, for Paramore, C sharp standard. And I didn't want to have to keep tuning or bringing different guitars on stage. So my way around that was to get a 7-string guitar and just make use of the extra low string, because the normal guitar is 6 strings, and then I have an extra. It's convenient, because instead of down tuning everything, if I want to play like a low C sharp chord, I can just do boom. Easy. I recommend getting it if you've been playing guitar for a while. It takes a little reallocating of your brain, but this song doesn't require the 7-string too much, except for one part that technically has a workaround. Hey, welcome, Perond. Thank you for joining, and thank you for joining in all caps as well. I appreciate it. It gives me enthusiasm. So, so I am just gonna get started on Mirror Mirror. Let me go ahead and preface the song by saying this song is just really special to me. I really like this song a lot. I came up with the verse lyrics for this song, so it's got just personal meaning to me. Let me go ahead and pull up the file. While I'm doing that as well, I should note that this song is in standard tuning, and aside from the one little part that has a workaround for the lead part, I'll address it when I teach the lead part. Aside from that one little part, the entirety of this song can be played on a 6-string. It's not a problem at all. The song itself is, once you get to the chorus especially, doesn't repeat. That whole chorus doesn't repeat. So it is a lot of memorization of a specific part. But once you get it memorized, it just flows. At least for me. Like, as soon as I hit that first chord, I know where I'm going next. There's a little preview of all the chorus chords in order. Let me go ahead and actually tilt the camera down as well, just so for future reference, you can see my hands a little more. Yeah, made you cry when you first heard it? I really like that it can move people. This song is I don't know, special. I like it. I like all of our music. I was in our top 0.5% of listeners in the Spotify Wrapped, but that just means that we make music that I like to listen to, which is something as an artist that's kind of invaluable. I fight for that every day. Being able to, just make music that I like. It's a struggle sometimes, because sometimes you get halfway done with an idea and then it's just, I don't like it. I don't like it anymore. Like, especially if you're going out on a limb on a concept, it's very easy to get bored of that concept. Like, if you're a naturally punk guitarist and then you try to make a swing kind of track, like, the feeling you want, you've listened to some songs that are kind of swingy, and then you try it, and either you're not good enough to get it to where you want it to in that style, or it just comes across to you as a gimmick, and then you just get bored with it. And as soon as that gimmick isn't fun, you realize you don't like the song on its merits. That is the fight, is making a song that's good on its merits and that you can actually change back and forth. Fun fact, actually, before we get started, a lot of songs from our first album, Tremble, we would just randomly do in like a swing style. So instead of Fire, which is this very folky, like straight, not like a Passenger air or like Ed Sheeran air, but like in that area, you know? And then sometimes we would just, the drummer would start playing the swing beat, and then I'd just go. It was so much fun. And we'd go through the whole song like that. And then I'd throw in. I love throwing in those for swing. Yeah. Peron says, I was on my bed when the song started and ended up halfway to the UK when it was over. That's how moved I was. And then you tried to type was multiple times. I feel that. Are you on your phone? I reckon that's probably why. Wait, why isn't even close? It's probably autocorrect, huh? So, I like the little dancing men. All right, so enough fooling around. Let's go ahead and listen to Mirror Mirror. I'll make some notes about the song structure afterwards. For now, I'm just going to kind of keep quiet and groove to it while I guess I'll have the chord chart up for you just to kind of glance over while it's playing. Let's go ahead and do it. Hello? There it is. That's a lot of chords.
The smell runs through the house again. It's barely been 10:30, and only shadows cross our minds. I'd speak up if I had the spine. The silence here is eloquent. Just take me through the time you spent in the hell you'd like to call your home. It's harder to get by, you know. I really want to help you, Em. I know that you've been losing friends. They never saw those painful lines. Just winter sweaters in mid-July. You can't see all the damage it does, and I haven't got a place at all. But don't look in the mirror. Don't look in the mirror. It feels like the end and it's out of hand. Just please understand. Don't look in the mirror. Doubt is in the mirror. Fall face first. See your worth. Nonsense birth. Don't get hurt. If everybody said I hate you, don't you think that they know better? Don't you think that they know better? If anybody said I hate you, don't you think that they know better? Don't you think they know you better?
This non-brand specific soda is amazing.
Your room looks cold and desolate. Can barely hold this elephant. But even though we're here again, finding words is not our friend. You've told me of the tears you've shed, suffocated, filled with dread. And though you say I'm helping now, it's hard to see exactly how. It's never easy, never
That song gives me a lot of good feelings. I'm just very happy with how that all came together. If you'll notice, that song actually has a very interesting and kind of easy structure to follow. It just follows ABC structure. And what that means is part A goes, part B goes, part C goes, and then it repeats. So there's really 3 distinct sections that I consider in this song, if you don't count like the intro, which I don't. And like there's, of course, little linking parts to it. And within those sections, there's variations upon them. But broadly, once you know the first half of the song, you know the whole song. On guitar, at least. Guitar and bass. And it's a really... I just really am very proud because it doesn't really follow that kind of standard chorus, verse, bridge, chorus, outro structure that a lot of songs do, and a lot of our songs do. It's a tried and true method. But let's go ahead and get started on this. Now, you'll notice that on the chord chart right over that way, there, down there, on the chord chart right down there, the top row actually includes all of the distinct chords that aren't just regular kind of like simple chords or easy to explain. In the first 2 sections. The last 2 rows are all of the chords for the chorus, because all of those chords are unique and they are weird. They're weird in the sense of they're not your standard guitar power chord, and they're not like an octave, which is easy to explain, and I've actually explained in some of my other lessons. We've already covered Misère d'Amour, which had a lot of single notes and a lot of thirds, so I didn't actually use a lot for the chord chart. There was extended power chords. Let me put gain on. There were extended power chords where you've got extra harmonies in there, but Misère was really easy to explain with a simple, minimal chord chart. Then we had, I believe we had I Want to Tell You, and I Want to Tell You has the bridge. I think the bridge took up most of it, but even then, the bridge is a 5-chord loop. I love that chord. That chord makes me happy. Yeah, it's a 5-chord loop, so it didn't actually take a lot of space on the chord chart to just label all those, and then you just loop them. Cat in the Window had some chords, especially during the bridge, had a lot of different chords that kind of like, okay, there's 3 unique chords here, and then you don't really hear them again, and then it's on to the next 3 unique chords, just for the bridge. And then the solo, I just, for the more difficult parts, I just described them by showing you guys on camera. So let's get started. So the first chord that we have is right out the gate, that D7, which is a high string triad shape, is kind of how I think about it. So for those of you that do know power chords, by the way, don't be thrown off. My lowest string is not normal. This is an extra string. So don't, when you see my hands like this and it looks like I'm on the 2nd string, if you have your guitar out, put your hands on your lowest string. Just kind of translate my hand position up 1 string on your fretboard. If you have a normal power chord, right? Root note, let's say on the 5th fret of the E string, and then you have 2 frets up and 1 string up, that's a power chord. A lot of you rock musicians know this chord very well, and you know that you can really move it anywhere on the fretboard. And it sounds okay. It's a very stable harmony, and it's always the same. The root note and the higher note, the harmony, are the same distance away no matter where you are on the fretboard. In this chord, you can see there's a bottom note, which is on the 11th fret for the D7. And then the highest note on the 9th fret is technically the same interval. That's a power chord just done 2 strings up and 2 frets back, which is different. Now, if you try to do this on lower strings, because, as I've said many times, the B string, the high B string, is very weird. It makes things shift by 1 note, by 1 half step, when you're trying to map your chords. So if you were to try to play this triad low, what you would actually be doing is, let me bring up the chord. you'd be doing this. You can see that there's a root note on the 5th fret of A, 4th fret of D for the 3rd. This is a major 3rd. This was in Misère d'Amour. And then you've got the 5th is 3 frets back. You've got it on the 2nd fret of your D string. This is the same interval as your power chord. So don't be confused by it. What you're really doing is you're stacking a major 3rd, and then you're stacking a power chord interval on top of it. Wait, just like that. And this triad is everywhere in music. It's kind of, if you were to have 3 practiced singers doing Christmas carols or what have you, a lot of them are doing 3rd and 5th harmony. They're making triads. Piano players use triads all the time. Triad just meaning 3 notes. And these are the most stable harmonic notes. And at least in general Western music. So let's get down to it. D7, you've got 11th fret of your G string, 10th fret of your B string, and 9th fret of your E string. I hope you guys have your guitars out at home. Now, depending on your guitar, if you're practicing this acoustic, it'll be a little hard to nail these down. If you've got an electric, it's a little easier, just because electric strings bend a little more easily, and there's usually lower action. So there's not much distance to press. Let's go ahead and get this out of the way. When you're doing this triad, you're not playing the chord, just strumming all the strings. This whole first part of the song, through both verses, that, you know, the starting one and the one later, are all arpeggiating. So they're hitting the notes individually in a specific pattern. So the arpeggio for the entirety of the verse, because all of your chords, if you'll notice from the diagram, I love doing it like a presentation. It's the same exact shape, just on different frets. You've got from the 9th to the 11th fret, from the 4th to the 6th, from the 2nd to the 4th. So it's always going to span 3 frets. Now, you're just moving it to different places. The thing that is different from each of these is once you get past the intro, where you're just hitting these 3 notes, you throw in a root note. I didn't notate this on the chord chart, partially because it's already labeled in the chord names. If you're familiar with the D7, A7, you're throwing in the root note, and all of the root notes are going to be on open strings. So the way that looks is, let me go ahead and shift my hand position up a little more. The way this works is, let's say I have this shape, right? You've got 11, 10, and 9 on G, B, and E respectively. The rhythm for it is G string to D string, and then back to G string, or sorry, G string to B string, then back to G. So you've got that little back and forth, and then hit E. I guess really a way to think of it is you're gonna hit B and E kind of, if you switch and hit, you know, B or E, always go back to G before you hit the next note. You'll hear there's maybe one little pause in there where I would hit a G, but I just don't. I just let that high E string ring out. So it's really, you're going, another way to think about it is you're going back and forth between G and B, and then you hit that E and hold it for extra long, and then you just go back to alternating G and B. Let me get a closer hand position so you can see. Okay, just like that, and then you basically loop. You loop it 4 times for the intro. Let me turn on my reverb. I think that'll make it sound extra nice and spacey. I love that extra ring out. Okay, so loop it 4 times. And again, you don't have to get it to speed. If you're watching the VOD later, feel free to pause and practice it. I'm just playing it to speed. just so you can hear kind of what it sounds like, what the rhythm will sound like at speed. So play it 4 times if I can talk and play at the same time. That's been a running theme. I can't do that in these streams. All right. After you've played it 4 times, the first, basically every time you were to loop that little pattern, that little right hand pattern, the first note goes to to one of the open strings. Instead of hitting that G string again. So, and then you use the G string for the rest of the pattern. So what I mean is, instead of going for the first part of the repetition, you go, oh shoot. I'm sorry, every 2 repetitions, you hit an open string. Just like that. And that hand pattern will carry through. So as long as you can get this down, it's the same pattern for all 3 of those first chords. D7, A7, B, and then back up to that E over C sharp. I'll explain that chord later. And then back up to the D7. And don't worry about that D7 power chord, by the way. That's the next part. Okay. The only difference being that when you're playing the D7 chord way up high, the root note you go to is the D string, is the open D string. When you go down to that A7 chord on the 4th through 6th frets, hit the open A string. It's a little more of a jump, so you just got to get used to doing that. Remember, every 2 repetitions of that little pattern. And then go back up to the D7. Back down to the A7. And so every time you go to a new chord, you'll hit the low open string root note twice. All right, this is the only part that incorporates the 7th string. Right here, the B chord, I actually hit the open low B. And just let it ring out. You only go to that chord for 1 or 2 rotations, so half as long as the other rotations. So you'll only hit the root note once. And now you go back up to that A7 chord, but instead of hitting the A, you hit the open E. And then you slide right back up to D, and then hit that open D string with the D chord, D7 chord. Let me stand up and play it. Again, you won't be able to hear my commentary because I'm going to be away from the mic. But I'll show you kind of my hand position and my right hand and left hand action while I play it. So, and I'll play it slow as well, just so you can kind of see exactly where my hand is at each point. So. All right. Now, for the next part, so basically the order of the chords that you'll hit, and when I say now 1 or 2 rotations, that means hitting the root note each time. So 1 rotation will be every time you hit the root note, which will be 2 of those arpeggiation patterns that we talked about earlier. So the chords in order go the D7 without a root note, which you'll hit for, I believe that's 2 rotations. So if you were to hit that low root note, you'd hit it twice. and then you throw in the D7 with the root note for 2 rotations. So that's 4 rotations on the same chord. Second rotation, third with the root note, fourth with the root note, and then you go to the A7 for 2 rotations, hitting the root note twice, and then the whole band kicks in at that point. Minus the vocals. It's a little intro with the drums, bass, and guitar. And then what you do is as soon as the vocals start, that's where you kind of start counting in your head. The chords will all be 2 rotations except for that B chord and the A7 chord when you hit the E string. Both of those will be 1 rotation. Otherwise, the order of the chords is D7 to A7. This is during the vocal part. Back up to D7. Down to A7. And then down to B. Up to E. Well, the A7 over the E. D7. And then down to B again, so you're going to do a little ascension again, ascent to E with the A7 chord, and then to D again. So really, the way I think of it is I go D7, A7, D7, A7, and then you climb up B to A7 to D, to B to A7 to D. You do that twice. And then that should be the end of the verse. Now, depending on where the vocals kick in, you might only do that D7, A7 1 time. Let's really quick double check the track because I don't want to be wrong on this. Okay, let's wait. Let's wait for vocals to come in and we'll start counting. How many times do I go D7, A7, D7, A7 when the vocals kick in? All right, when the band kicks... And yeah, during this whole band part, you're just going D7, A7, D7, A7.
The smell runs through the house again. It's barely even 10:30, and only shadows cross our minds. I'd speak up if I had the spine.
There you go. So check that out. As soon as the vocals kick in, you only go D7, A7 once because you've already done it with the band instrumentally. So that's one thing to know. Once those drums kick in, that's where you can start counting. Once those drums kick in, you do D7, A7, and then D7, A7 again. That second time, the vocals will have come in. And then you do B, E over C sharp, or the A7. I'll call it E over C sharp when it is. So then after you do the D7, A7 once with the vocals, you do B, E over C sharp, D7. And then do it again. B, E over C sharp, D7. Now, one thing to note, when you are doing the first rotation for B, E over C sharp, and D7, voice crack, D7, one thing to note is when you hit that D7 again and you start doing the arpeggiation slightly changes, and that is kind of a signal. I put that in almost as a signal to the band, like, hey, the next rotation is the last time. So the next time we do B, E over C sharp, D7, then we're gonna ring out and go to the chorus. So yeah, exactly. I love the line graphs. There's a lot of up and down in this song in terms of just, like mood and feeling and sadness and chords. A lot of chords. All right, so the arpeggiation difference for D7 when you're doing the first ascent from B all the way to D7 is, let me go ahead and play from B7, or sorry, B, from B. Now, I put that in, it's a bit harder. And of course, it's not mandatory to play. However, it is a lot of fun, and I think it's a really nice touch because, again, it signals the next rotation and gives a little more depth. And you can hear this track was done with our drummer Rue, and this is one of the 2 tracks he did on this album. The rest were guest drummers. And the man was so just good at his job. You can hear he'll open and close his hi-hat for different sections. For like one whole ascent of B to D7, he does it closed. And so it keeps this very like you're on time and he's giving you the groove. And then in the last rotation of B to D7, you can hear him open up his hi-hat again. And to me, it almost sounds like just wind rushing around you because he's created this atmosphere where it's more ringy, it's more noisy. Real quick, Perron asks, which song did you and Jack do the drums for? I can never remember. We did the drums for 3 Day High, which we haven't taught yet. That might be on the docket next, if for my next lesson, because that's one where it is not that difficult of a structure, but it has odd measure. It has odd time. So it's very, I don't know, as long as you understand odd time and can play it, it's very fun. And it might be a good intro to give odd time because it doesn't do it crazily. It just incorporates it in the choruses. All right, so back to this. So, like I said, as soon as the drums kick in full force, you're on D7, A7, D7, A7. That second rotation, you get the vocals playing with you. And then you do B, E over C sharp, D7, B, E over C sharp, D7. So you go run through it twice. And that first time you do that ascent, once you hit the D7 chord, the picking pattern for it, you do the first half of the picking pattern normally. But the second half looks like this. I'll play it first just so you can see what's going on. Let me try that again. All right, so what's going on there is really I'm switching which strings are getting the back and forth motion. So I hit the open D, and I carry the pattern through normally for half of it. The second time I hit the root note, I instead go to B and E. So I go root note, which is the open D, root note, B, E, B, E, B, G, B. And then, once I hit that G, it kind of becomes an up and down. You're going up and down those 3 notes. So you go G, B, E, B, G again. So as soon as you hit that first G, you'll kind of know that the next time you go up and down the chord, you'll hit it, and then you skip over the B string. Second time you hit the G string, it's just going back and forth between G and E. So that little jump can be kind of hard to master, but it'll go D, B, E, B, E, B, G, B, E, B, G, E, G, E, G, E. And then you go down to B again, because remember, you're repeating the ascent. So. And you can be a little sloppy and really lightly hit the G and E at the very end of the chord, or at the very end of the pattern, because it's kind of supposed to fade out, and you need time to switch your hands. If you were to carry that strumming pattern very strictly, you can hear in the time it takes you to slide all the way down the fretboard, it's very noticeably cut off and almost slid. So I would recommend, personally, this is the way I play it, is you kind of let your hits get really light at the end, and you just pick up your hand and move it. So where the last few notes aren't even audible, but you let the reverb, or just the clean guitar, the sound of the clean guitar ringing out, cover that extra space if you're switching the chord. So again, when you're doing that ascent from B to D7, make sure you do the first rotation of the arpeggiation normally, and then the second time you hit the root note, you do that different arpeggiation. And then B, D, C, E over C sharp to D7. And then you hit the root note twice, same normal pattern. And then after you've done that ascent twice and you're hanging on that D7, which you do twice as long as the B and E over C sharp. The second time you're hanging on that D7, the next time where you would normally switch to a chord, just ring out, hit all of the notes, all 4 notes on the D7. D, G, B, E. Quick enough that it sounds like a full chord, but slow enough that you can just barely make out each individual note pluck. It's kind of just a gentle stroke. It's not a, and it's not a. So just kind of find the middle ground there. There's a ring out by the band, and then the drums come in. All right, I've been teaching you the actual full part up to this point, because if you're playing rhythm guitar, there's no rhythm part during this section. And I personally think if I were to give you little power chords to play over it, it would ruin the atmosphere. So I recommend if you're going to play a rhythm part to this song, you jump in right here. Right here is where the rhythm part starts. And from now on, I'm going to teach you the rhythm part. And then once I've finished the rhythm part lesson, I will teach you guys the lead part. And the lead part is where we're actually going to use all of these chords that you see on here. Even that D7 power chord, not in the rhythm part. It's going to be much simpler. You're only going to have to play 2 or 3 notes at a time. And luckily, the rhythm part does not have all of these weird chords that it plays. It follows the bass, which has a much simpler root note pattern, but it is a little more rhythmically complex. So you're just going to have discipline on your right hand. Make sure you're hitting the notes strongly that need to be accented, because some are going to be a little more important to emphasize than others. All right, so you've rung out. There's a space. There's a silence. The audience pauses. And then Rue does his drum fill. Right? Now what do you do? All right, if you're a rhythm guitarist, let's go ahead and throw on the gain right now. I mean, if you're lead, you should do it too, because this whole part's gain. All the way through to the next verse. I'm a simple man. I like simple effects. Okay, here's the part. And what you're really doing is you're accenting the bass. So the bass guitar is already playing an established riff that it's been doing since the verse. And the bass guitar part is exactly the same for this next immediate part. It's only 2 chords, so you're in luck. I assume if you're watching this lesson, you pretty much know what a power chord is. I explained it a little earlier, but basically you take a root note, and that's what I'll be identifying it by. If I say 9th fret E power chord, that means E string, lowest string, on the 9th fret. And then to get the power chord, all you do is go, again, 2 frets up and 1 string higher. So 9th fret on E, 11th fret on A in this case. But for the actual chord that you're going to be doing, it will be 10th. 10th fret on E, 12th fret on A. Now, what you've got to work with is hold on that 10th fret on E power chord. D, it's a D power chord for those of you that care. Thank you, Perrond. Yeah, I enjoy the company. It's very fun. And I'm glad you like the song too. It really does help. Like, that does help these lessons, is when I know people are enjoying at least the song itself. So, all right, let's go ahead. So the chord progression you're doing is 10 on E power chord, down to 5 on E power chord. If you want to do, like actual note chords, if you're trying to transpose it to a different instrument or you want to play it in a different style, those root notes are D and A. So. Now, there's little variations before you transition back and forth between each chord. So let me go ahead and go over those. When you're on the 10th fret on E and you're doing this first power chord, just make sure that right before you go down to the 5th fret, you do this little up and down to the 12th fret power chord. Now, when you're down here, make sure that you go down to the 4th fret and then back up to the 5th fret about halfway through. And then when you're about to ascend back up to the 10th fret, hit the 7th fret power chord and the 9th fret power chord for 2 notes each, and then you're right back in. That is exactly the same rhythm that the bass plays in the intro. And so if you actually listen to the rhythm track, bass and rhythm guitar are playing the exact same thing, just with gain on. Yep. So you can basically copy what you've been hearing the bass do the whole time rhythmically. You can also, if you really don't want to worry about the right hand, you can just do open strums. And keep in mind, the bass is going to do a little more walking and note changes than the rhythm guitar is. Just be okay with that. Just know that we designed it that way. That's intentional. The bass gets a little more room to be interesting than the rhythm guitars because we don't have a rhythm guitarist. Really the point of the rhythm parts is to kind of beef up the bass. Sometimes they diverge, but all right. So you could just do Now, you only go back and forth twice. And then as soon as you've gone back and forth, just like that, just with the bass, the whole band goes into this kind of what I consider like a pre-chorus part where you go... Now, most of this is going to be ascending the neck. So, the power chords that you're looking at on this are 2nd fret of E, 5th fret of E, and then 10th fret. So you're going back up to that 10th. And you only hit the 2nd fret and 5th fret 3 times each. And then you hang on. Then you hang on to that higher chord. And then again, only 3 times each. And there, I go to the 4th fret of the A string and make a power chord between the A and D string. And then go down to the 2nd fret of A and make the power chord. And then do an open power chord on A. So just the A and D strings right there. If you make an A major shape, with camera. If you were to make an A major shape, it's just the top 2 notes if you include the open string. So, all right, 2nd fret on E, 5th fret, 10, 2nd, 5th, 4 on A, 2 on A, open A, and then 2nd on E, 5th on E, 10th on E. And then for the final rotation, you go 2nd on E, 5 on E, open E power chord. And then you hold that. So, altogether, it should sound like, I'll play this slowly first. 1, 2, 3, 4. another drum fill. And now we are on to the chorus for the rhythm guitar part. Okay, so chorus for the rhythm guitar part should loop 4 times. It should. As long as you're kind of going along. The bass, again, will diverge at this point. But as far as I know, rhythm guitar part is totally simple, easy to learn, and should work over all of the chords that the lead guitar is playing up there. So don't be worried about those yet. Okay, for the chorus part, the way we do it is 5 on E, again, all power chords. And you hit that 8 times. All of these chords should hit either 4 or 8 times. So 5 on E, open E, 2nd on E, 5 on A 4 times, and then 7 on A 4 times. And then you repeat. Should be the same thing 4 times. We'll play it over the track just to make sure, but the only thing to note is you can keep a steady strumming pattern. That's what the guitars do during the chorus. But keep in mind that the 3rd time around, you're going to have to hit the right hand with the rest of the band. Because when you start the 3rd loop of that rhythm guitar part, instead of just carrying it straight, the band goes. Now, you can hit that low note if you want. I'm just shifting the lowest note down 1 fret. And then the rest of the pattern is straight. It's just that first chord. And then you can carry it on from there. So let's go ahead and listen to the chorus and play along with it to make sure that it lines up. Actually, as a better idea, let me go ahead and take it from the post verse, like that kind of gainy verse. I'll just play through it because we've already gotten, we've already established that it's just 10 on E, 5 on E, 10 on E, 5 on E, and then 2, 5, 10, 2, 5, 4 on A, 2, open, 2 on E, 5, 10, 2, 5, open. So as long as you can remember the 10, 5, 10, 5, and then 2, 5 blank, 2, 5 blank, 2, 5 blank, 2, 5 blank, then you should be good. So let's go ahead and play through all the way through the chorus. So yeah, we'll play all 3 parts. The 10, 5, the 2, 5 blank, and then the 5 open, 2, 5, 7 is kind of how I think about it. 4 times. All right, let's go ahead and take it from the gainy part.
You can't losing friends. They never saw those painful lines. Just winter sweaters in mid-July. You can't see all the damage he does. And I haven't got a place at all, but don't look in the mirror. Don't look in the mirror. It feels like the end and it's out of hand. Just please understand. Don't look in the mirror. Doubt is in the mirror. Face first. See your nonsense
Now the loop.
If everybody said I hate you, don't you think that they know better? Don't you think that they know better? If anybody said I hate you, don't you think that they know better? Don't you think they know you better?
There is one difference. What the bass does for the very final rotation at the end, instead of going 5 open, 2, 5/7 on A. The bass goes 5 open, and then 5 straight to 5 on A, and does 5 4 4 5 4 4 5. What you can do for the rhythm guitar part instead, if you want, is just go 5 open and then 5 on A, 5 on A, 5 on A. Just hit the chord 3 times with the bass. And then it's right back to the verse with that arpeggiating guitar pattern, clean patch, reverb, all of that. So there you go. There is the rhythm guitar part for Mirror Mirror. All you have to do is, if you want to play the strictly rhythm part, don't play during the clean part. And then as soon as the gain part kicks in, you play the 10-5, 10-5 on E, and then 2-5 blank, 2-5 blank, 2-5 blank, 2-5 blank for like the pre-chorus. And then you do 5 open 2 5-7, 5 open 2 5-7, 5-5 4 open 2 5-7, and then 5 open 5 on A, 5-5. So, and again, all of those being power chords. Aside from the odd, like, going down one note on the lower string and then back up. It's all power chords. So, all right. Now it is time for that part over there. The lead guitar part. Boom. All right. Welcome to the most fun part of this song. I really do enjoy this part because you've got the kind of really hard right-hand discipline part of the verse. And this part is all left-hand discipline. You have to have really good control over your chord switches to be able to pull this off, I personally think. And of course, you know, this isn't the hardest guitar part in the world, but it's a lot to remember, and there's a lot of really weird contortion shapes your hand has to do and switch between quickly. So I really like it. It carries, it's kind of made with the idea of like how old classical composers wouldn't use necessarily a lot of chord loops. They would take a chord progression and just build on it. If you think of it like this, a lot of modern music will think of the scale, like the major scale. If you're talking about like F major, they'll identify each note in that scale with a different chord. So you've got the first chord, which is the root note, the third chord, which is the third note you hit, 5, 4. So if we wanted to play the sixth chord, you go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Stuff like that. So a lot of modern music uses that and will say, okay, I play the first chord, the fifth chord, the fourth chord, and back to the first chord. So we think of it vertically. We think of the notes as being one thing. All of the notes together that you're playing are one chord, and it can be identified with one name. So you say, I play the first, and then the sixth, and then the seventh, and then the second. You think of it as a whole block. That's what I mean when I say vertically. You think of it vertically. A lot of classical composers, on the other hand, thought, I think Bach was the one that did this a lot, thought horizontally, where instead of taking the whole chord and saying, I want this chord from this scale, maybe with some extra added notes here and there, he thought of the whole chord as being separate melodies. He split them into, if you have a 3-note chord, he split them into 3 different notes. And then he listened to the melody for each one individually and tried to make them fit, but also tried to construct the melody. And so it makes you think of things differently. For instance, this comes up a lot in this song. You can see the D7 power chord right there. That is not the the whole thing you do with that D7 power chord. The way I thought of that chord is the first 3 notes of it. Let me go to it. The 10, the 12, and the 11 on the E, A, and D strings respectively. I believe stay the same. That high note I thought of horizontally. The high note goes along a melody while the others stay the same. So I kind of had to think about where that melody was going. And then later, once we get to the chorus, where you see all those two bottom rows, those chords are all thought of really horizontally. Each of those notes is separately playing its own melody. So you'll see the lowest note, the 5 on the A chord, goes to the 7, and then to the 5 on the D, and then back to the 4th. So if you trace the melody for the lowest note, it's going through its own little melody. Same with the higher notes. The second note goes to the second note of the next chord, to the second note of the next chord. That's why most of them are 3-note chords. But anyways, for the D7 power chord, I play that D7, where you basically take a little power chord shape on 10, which is exactly in the rhythm part, so it's the same. There's no coincidence there. And then you stack 11 and 11 on the D and G strings above it. So, the way I normally play this is I play the power chord with my pinky and pointer finger, and then I use my middle and ring finger respectively to hit the D and G strings. And this strumming pattern is all just like constant strumming. Now, here's what I mean about the high note going through a little melody. It's that you're holding, if you take away your ring finger, you're holding these 3 notes, right? What the high note does is it's going... I thought of it just as that little melody. I knew I wanted that little melody in there. So I just took the chord... And you can see I jump down to this low note in the melody, but I've switched my fingers so that I can comfortably play that same chord. There's a lot of that happens in this song, where you basically are switching 1 or 2 notes from your original shape, and you have to find out how to play that same chord that you were already holding with different fingers. You have to figure out how to play it when you switch. Because the only thing that you're adjusting for is 1 note, but you're taking almost your whole hand position out. I usually will leave my pinky, but otherwise my middle finger goes to where my index finger was, my ring finger goes to where my middle finger was, so it moves up a string, and then my highest finger goes to the lower note, the 9 on the G. So you can see there's kind of like an elevator. These 2 fingers move down, and then this finger moves up high, as it was on the lower string, and then moves up. Just because it's more comfortable to hit the lower note with the finger that's lowest on the fretboard. And then back to that D7. Now, this next chord, again, that little melody is going... right after. So just like that. So I will usually, because I have my ring finger back, I've switched back to the normal chord. I have my ring finger on the 11th fret of the G string. It's the only one that moves to accommodate. It goes and grabs that note that the pinky was doing, the 12th fret of the A string. So your pinky is then free to hit 14 and 13 on the G string. So again, you've got your middle and ring stacked on the highest notes. And then you move your index finger to take the high note when the melody descends. And then you go back up and switch your whole 3 fingers there. Again, pinky stays the same. And then you go back up to that D7, and then you switch again and let your pinky take the highest note. So. And again, don't be afraid. I've said this a couple times. Don't be afraid to hit like an open string just really quickly if you need to use it to transition to the next chord. In the noise of all the gain, it gets lost. And as long as you can hit the next note of the next chord on beat, you're fine. You can also hear one little detail is I'm accenting with my right hand. I am keeping a constant strumming pattern. However, the spacing of the notes doesn't tell you how hard you hit different ones. So you can hear when I'm plucking, I'm going. So really, I'm trying to accent a downbeat and then a part where you're supposed to feel like it's not as driving. So it's kind of going back and forth where... actually, let me make sure. When you start doing that extra space, you know, you space out the accents, it kind of gives a little less definition on where the beat is, and so it kind of makes you feel a little more floaty, like you're not as grounded, which is fine, which is the feeling you want. Because when you're moving on the melody like that, you want it to stand out a little more. So having the part feel different rhythmically, underlying everything, is important. So we've got that little chord that goes through a melody change. Now, right here is the tagline of the song. Don't look in the mirror. Don't look in the mirror. That whole thing. The guitar is actually a little hard to pick out the lead in this part, and that's because it's following the melody of the vocals. There is one difference, though. So I'm playing octaves, which is same as a power chord, but you move the highest note up one string. So instead of getting, you get, and again, I'm muting the note in between. The one difference is, you're playing the melody with octaves, and the melody goes, and this is all on the E string with octaves, so you're doing E and D, 2 frets up from the root note. The melody for the vocals is 12, 5, 7, 9, 7, 5. Again, all on E, all octaves. And then down to 2. And then you'll do that 5, 7, 9, 7, 5 again. So you'll hit that D7 chord, power chord. And then instantly go to the vocal melody. And then you go back to the D7 chord. Now, one thing to note is I do actually make a distinction. So you see the first time in that whole rotation of the vocal melody, I go down one time, I go down to the 2nd fret, and then another time I start by going up at the 12th fret. Which one hits in what order is actually important. The first time through, you play that D7 power chord, and then you go to this vocal melody. You actually start on the 2, on the lower note first, and then you play the whole rotation, and then do it again with the 12th fret. So the first time through, after you've hit your D7 power chord, you do the lowest note for the first rotation, the second, and then the 2nd fret, and then the 12th fret for the second rotation. And then you go back to that D7 power chord. The next time you play it, you hit the 12 first, and then the 2. So I'll say it when I hit it, but let me go ahead and play through this whole part for you, just so you can hear that there is a difference between the two parts. 2, 12. 12. 2. Now, you'll notice as well when you're about to go back to the D7 power chord after your first rotation of the vocal melody, instead of going down to the 5, you go actually up to the 12. So, and then you hit your D7 power chord again. Now, the interesting thing about these octaves is not just that they're following the vocal melody. I'm also hitting the open A string in all of these octaves. You might have already noticed it because my chord doesn't sound just like octaves. If it did, it would just be. But my strategy in doing this, in hitting the open A string, and basically you have to let this lower finger arch so you don't mute it. You'll hear it sounds very dissonant. Even when you hit the high string. You have to do those octaves and keep that space open for that low string to hit. The reason I did that is because the bass part and the rhythm guitar part at this point are, again, playing 10-5, 10-5. When you're at your D7, you're hitting the same note. They're playing a D. That 10 is D. And when they go down to 5, that's the same exact thing as hitting the open A string. So doing that was actually a way to boost what they're playing a little bit more. It accents the note that they're hitting. So it's fun. It's a fun little thing to throw in. All right. So again, D7 power chord, and then 2, 5, 7, 9, 7, 5, 12, 5, 7, 9, 7, 12. D7 power chord, and that little, again, the little melody thing twice, or the second time, and then 12, 5, 7, 9, 7, 5, 2, 5, 7, 9, 7, 5. And then the next part, where it's the little kind of cyclic ascension, where you've got So the way you play that is you hit the first 2 notes just as power chords. It's actually the same as the rhythm part. I do add a third note. I add the extra octave beneath the highest note. So you go 2 and 5. Now, normally in the rhythm part, you're doing a blank. You're kind of doing another power chord at the 10th fret. Because it's 2, 5, blank, 2, 5, blank. In the lead part, you go 2, 5, and then you do the same shape as, where is it? D add 9, second row, middle chord. You see that it's basically a power chord and then a power chord on top for the higher note. So it's spread across 5 frets and only plays 3 of them. You take that same exact shape, instead of starting it on the 5th fret of the A string, you do it on the 10th fret of the E string. They're the same chord, but this gives a little darker tone to it. So for this one, your frets will be E string, 10th fret, A string, 12th fret, and 14th fret for the D string. So again, you're going from power chords 2 and 5 to this add 9 chord on the 10th fret. And it will feel spread out at first. Just got to get used to playing it. So and then you go back to 2 and 5 again. Second time through, instead of going to that add 9 chord, hang on that low open E string and play octaves on the A string. So you hit the low E string, hit the 4th fret of the A string, and the 6th fret of the G string, and make sure you mute the D string. So you've got the open note. Again, that's... And then slide your octave down to the 2nd fret. And then I usually will really quickly go down to the open octave, which requires me to... I mute the D string with my middle finger. And you hit with your index finger the 2nd fret of the G string and the open A string. And then you go back to the 2-5. So again, those first 2 rotations. Third rotation is the same as the first. That 10, 12, 14 on the E string. E, A, and D. Now, the final rotation, you switch it up. You do second, so you still do the power chord for the 2nd fret on the E string. But this time, you use your index finger and mute all of the strings between it and the final string. And you've got it spread across where your middle finger is now on the 4th fret. So you got to get used to this shape. This is a really spread out shape. One way to think about it is you can think about that D add 9 shape that we already did, the power chord on top of a power chord that we did at the 10th fret. Think of it like that, but the pinky is on literally the highest string, the E string. Oh, I'm sorry. And then 1 fret down. And again, with this finger, you're barring and muting all of the notes in between. So power chord and 5th fret on the E string. Power chord on the 2nd fret and 4th fret of E and A. And so you do a strum, and you hold it. You do a strum and then a mute, a quick mute. And you do that for both of the next 2 chords. So you do strum, you hold that high note, and you hit the open A power chord. So open A and 2nd fret on A. And again, you're muting all of the strings below just by laying your finger over it. And then the final chord, you move that high note down to the 4th fret of the E string, and you move from the open A power chord to the open E. So you've got A with the 5th fret, E with the 4th fret. And remember to mute all those strings in between. If you don't, it sounds like this. Something like that. Don't do that. And Perron asks, oh, also, you said these lessons are going to stay up as a VOD, but Twitch doesn't save them forever. Are you planning to re-upload them to YouTube? I hope so. We'll need to download the videos or make them save, because there is a way to make your Twitch VODs save. I don't remember what the time limit is. I will need to get into the account and see, or ask our momager to save them, at least, and send them to me so that I can take them and edit them. I might do that, or I might just throw them up. Who knows? I actually don't know how we're going to distribute them, but yeah, if it's a few weeks, then hopefully we still have all of the lessons. If not, we will find another way to keep, the ability to learn these songs. I won't say exactly how or where. Actually, I will say that speaking of learning UFN songs, if you want to go back and learn some of Tremble, I'll take this moment to say that we have a Patreon. If you go to our website, www.untilfurthernotice.net, or to our Instagram, UFNmusic_official, should have a link there.
to our Patreon. And one of the tiers gets you access to tabs for Tremble. They should have just been updated. If not, they will be soon. And you will have the guitar tabs for all 7 songs. Now, of course, some of them are on a 7-string, but a lot of them are doable on a 6-string. You might need to move 1 or 2 notes around, but it's totally doable. Yeah, so if you want to learn those, you can do that. But for This Is Temporary, we're going to go through video lessons. All right, let's go ahead and keep on moving. So we've got, for the lead guitar part, hang on D7 power chord, do the little melody, where you've got 9, 7, 9, 14, 13. And you got to change your chord position, or your hand position for the chord every time. And then octaves on 2, 5, 7, 9, 7, 5. 12, 5, 7, 9, 7, 5. I'm sorry, 12 instead of 5 for the last one. Go back to that D7 chord. Same melody. 12, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5. 2, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5. Hydrate check real quick. Delicious. 2, 5. Add 9 on the 10th fret, so you're doing 10, 12, 14. 2, 5, 4 octave on A with the open E, down to 2 octave, open real quick for 1 note, and then 2, 5, 10 with the add 9. And then you do your power chords on 2 on E, open A, and open E, with the high note on the 5th fret for the first 2 chords and the 4th fret for the final chord. Oh, shoot. Just like that. Boom. There is everything except the chorus. Now, let's bring up this handy-dandy chord chart. Some of the shapes, I think 1 or 2 of them are going to repeat, but basically the bulk of all of the chords are here in their order of appearance. So, A. You can see it's 5, 7, which is an octave, and then you add that little extra note in between them on the 6th fret of G. So that's E, D, and G. And again, this is going to be a constant strumming pattern. You will hear me accenting certain notes, though. So, A. Now here's a fun one. 7, the B add 4. So you've got a 7 and a 9 on E and D. So that's an octave again. But you add in this extra note below. It's kind of like if you did a power chord and just barred the top 2 notes and forgot to hit the power chord note. So A, B add 4, and you can see my hand position here, if it'll show it. Okay. And then the next chord is that D add 9 shape, except here we play it on the 5th fret, 7th fret, and 9th fret of the A through G strings. So you're hitting all the dots except the lowest one. And then you go back down to B add 4. Wait, I'm sorry. No, excuse me. So you do A, B add 4, D add 9, and then instead of switching right back to B add 4, you take that highest note. This is another example of the horizontal melody chord schema of classical composers. And you take the 9th fret of the G string and move it down to the 6th fret. So it looks very similar to that A chord, but not exact, because there's only 1 string difference between each note instead of that jump from E to D in the A string. So you've basically moved the A chord up, the lowest note up 1 string. So you've got 5, 7, and 6 on A, D, and G, respectively. wrong position. So yeah, you switch basically try to switch cleanly from that D add 9 into that, I believe that's a D7 chord. So again, hand position is, then you go back to the B add 4, and then you hit that A again. If I could hit it. So far, A, B add 4, D add 9, shift the high note, B add 4, A. I'm going to play it once again slowly, just so you can get the shapes along with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. So you've gone A, B add 4, D add 9, and then it's another kind of D7. I didn't want to label it as that because there's already enough D7s floating around here. And then you go back to B add 4 and then back to A. And then instead of doing that little ascent and then descent back down, you do a descent. So you go down to the 4th fret of the E string and you skip a lot of strings. You can see it's the same exact shape as A, but instead you've moved 1 fret lower and you've shifted those 2 high notes up 1 string each. So instead of being on the D and G strings, you're now on the G and B strings. Same configuration, same shape. So you've got shift it down, and the highest notes up 1 string. And now we've got a little bar chord for you. F sharp minor. Don't worry, this one doesn't stick around for too long. You can see it's literally a power chord. Second fret of E, 4th fret of A, 4th fret of D, and then you bar the rest of them. And this is an actual bar. You want to hit all of the higher notes because they sound really nice. They brighten up the chord a lot. And then you see A6 right there. It's an octave. And then you're basically hitting, what is it? I'm trying to find a chord that it relates to. It doesn't really relate to a chord. I guess the way I would describe it is it's like the A, except you've moved the highest note 1 fret higher and 1 string higher. So it's kind of got this weird little like claw shape that you have to do because you have to stretch and there's 1 fret distance between each, or 1 string separating each string that you're actually hitting. And again, use your index finger to mute them. So it's an octave with an extra high note on the B string. Take that same shape, slide it up 2 frets to what would be a B6 chord, I guess. So you've got, so you started on 7 and then 9 and 9. So to recap, real quick, A, B add 4, D add 9, shift the high note, D7, B add 4, A, G sharp minor 6 add 4, F sharp minor bar, A6, high up, and then up 2 frets. So again. Now, finally, we've got a fun part. You go back to A. So the next part, it goes A, B minor 7 add 9, C sharp minor 7. That B minor 7 add 9 chord right there is the A chord, but you've just shifted that high note up to the 7th, or the low note up to the 7th fret. Don't be scared by it. All it really is the same A chord, and then you take your middle finger, hit the root note, 7th fret, and you take your index finger and replace that middle finger position. So that's the G string 6th fret. and it only sticks around for one note. So, and this is the point in the rhythm guitar progression, the third time around, where you go. You got to accent those notes. You got to hit them singular. So you're going to do the same in the lead part. And then you go right to that. This is the scary chord here. This is C sharp minor 7. You got to hit the 4th fret of the A string with your pinky. Middle finger hits the 2nd fret of the D string. And then your index finger hits the 1st fret of the G string. And then you hit that open B. I really like the chord. But the switch to it is a monster. This took me a little while to get. So again, it's A chord, and then you hit the, what is that, B minor 7, add 9 for one note, for one beat, I think an 8th note. And then you hit the C sharp minor 7. That's basically a minor triad. So you gotta fling your hand down to the bottom of the fretboard, because you'll see it goes all the way to the 1st fret, whereas these others are right around the 5th fret. All right. So again, this shape, this chord, I'll do it slow. 1, 2, 3, 4. Up to speed. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you go immediately to D add 9, omit 5. And then you can see it's got in parentheses the moving the high note up. I didn't do that with the D add 9. If you see, the D add 9 has that same idea. That parentheses just notates you've moved a note. I probably should have done that for D7 and D add 9 because those have moving notes. I just didn't. I forgot to do it. And then I remembered at that chord. But that little parentheses just means the next chord is just switching to that higher note. So you can see from that C sharp minor 7, we go 5th fret on A, 4th fret on D, 5th fret on B. You hang on the initial chord for a little bit, and then just before you're going to switch to the next chord, which is E, you hit that higher one. I usually do this chord. This is actually, for those of you that have played acoustic guitar a lot, you might know C add 9. Let me put clean on. You might know this chord. It is actually all over, because you know C. And so C add 9 is taking those two bottom notes, keeping them the same, and then just doing your top 1 or 2 fingers, just like that on the highest 2 strings. This is the same shape, except you remove your pinky, and then you slide it up 2 frets for the D add 9. So again, you've got C minor, triad, and then you've got that D add 9. And then your pinky hits the 7th fret on the B string right before you switch. So C minor, add 9, high note, and then you switch up to E. This is an E chord. A lot of you probably know it as E major. This is just a different way to hit an E chord. I usually will hit the I will not hit the open string for this one. 7th fret of A, 6th fret of D, 9th fret of G. So you have to switch up to that chord after doing your little... Now, if you'll notice, my hand isn't actually far off from this shape as opposed to the chord right before it, because you've got your add 9, you hit your pinky on the next one, and then you slide up. These low notes just slide up 2 frets. You don't have to change any strings, because you've got high note. When you slide up, it's the same distance. You can see there's a fret distance between the highest note and the lowest note. And then you slide up, and this pinky just needs to move up, down 1 string to hit the 7 on the G string. So before it was hitting the, what is that? The 7 on the B string, and now it's hitting, sorry, the 9 on the G string. Just like that. So again, you've gone from that, I'm sorry. Boom. Yeah, so then you've got your A chord again, that octave with the 3rd. And then you go up to B add 9. And then the final part of the lead guitar part for the chorus is an octave on the A string on the 4th fret, and you hit the open D string with this octave too. So again, you have to arch your fingers so that you can hit that open D. And again, it doesn't sound right. Oh, I haven't said this yet. It doesn't sound right on its own. But if you do it in context, that D is what the whole chord progression, oh God, what that whole chord progression is resolving to is the D. So we're doing a very dissonant chord against the D, and then doing a slightly less dissonant chord, but that D is prominently ringing out, and the bass accentuates it, and the rhythm guitars accentuate it. So we resolve to that D chord. So you've got octave on the 4th fret of A with the open D string ringing below it. Hit it twice, and then slide up to the 7th fret octave. And for some reason, that open string just, as it rings out more and more, becomes more prominent. As long as you don't flub it and mute it. Okay. There you go. That is the whole lead guitar part. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to play through the chorus lead guitar part. I'm going to do it slowly, and then we're going to go back and play the whole thing from the start of the gaining part, with the whole D7 chord and the octaves with the vocal melody, all the way through the rest of the gaining part. And then once we've done that at speed, I'm going to go ahead and play along with the song, with the rhythm part and then with the lead part. So let's go ahead and go through the lead part slowly. So, drum does its little fill. 1, 2, 3, 4. D at 9. Move the high note. B at 4. A. G sharp minor 6 add 4. F sharp minor bar. A6. Move it up 2 frets. A. B minor 7. I'm sorry, I should go to rhythm. 1. I'll start from the A to the B minor 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. C sharp minor 7. D add 9. Omit 5. Carry the high note. E. A. B add 4. Octave on D or on A 4th to 7. And let the D ring. Okay, I'm going to not say all the chords and play it slowly once more. So if you are listening to this on the VOD, practice that whole chord sequence, and you can play along to this to see if you got the switches right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. All right. Now, let's play from the gainy part all the way through the chorus, and we'll do it at speed. So if you feel practiced enough at this point and you're wanting to try it out, let's play it together. Start basically right after the drum fill. I'll count us in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. There you go. There is the lead guitar part for Mirror Mirror by Until Further Notice. I've gone through the clean part, the second part of the verse, and then that B structure. We've gone through part A, part B, and part C, where C stands for chorus and A and B don't stand for anything. One quick note, which is that when you're doing your D7 chord for that B structure part, just before you do your little vocal melody thing, the second time you come to this, when you've done A, B, C, A, and B, and so you've gotten around to the B part again, and you're doing that vocal melody for the second time, the second D7 power chord you hit has a little variation on its melody, because before it went 11, 9, 11, 14, 13. When you are doing it the second time through, on the second rotation, the melody goes. You can see it goes 14, 13, 14, 13. So instead of just doing 14, 13, and hanging on 13, you go back and forth just once more. So it'll sound like this from the start of the gainy part, the second B section. Drum fill. Normal. This is the second time. And then you do your whole power chords. That whole thing. 2-5 blank. So, I want to thank you guys for joining in and hanging out as I teach you Mirror Mirror. We're going to go ahead and play along to it. We're going to play the rhythm guitar part first, and then we're going to play the lead guitar part over the track. And then we'll discuss it a little bit and discuss the writing and the drumming and maybe what's coming up in the next few weeks. But yeah, we're pretty much done with the lesson part. Hopefully this will be saved on our Twitch, on our VODs, so you guys can come back to it whenever you want. We might download them and save them for later. We might put them, I don't know if we're going to put them behind a Patreon tier later, so you're just getting limited access, limited edition, limited time only free content. We'll see. I don't know how it's going to work. We got to kind of discuss that. But yeah, I will contact UFN management to see. Let's go ahead and play through the power chordy rhythm guitar part first and play along to Mirror Mirror. And again, this first part is just going to be me waiting, as the lead guitar part will generally take the clean part. So let's do it. once more with the lead guitar part. So you're going to hear me play. I'm very close to the camera. We're going to play a clean part and the lead.
This runs through the house again. It's barely even 10:30, and only shadows cross our minds. I'd speak up if I had the spine. The silence here is eloquent. Just take me through the time you spent in the hell you'd like to call your home. It's harder to get by, you know. I really want to help you, and I know that you've been losing friends that never saw those painful lines. Just winter sweaters in mid-July. You can't see all the damage it does, and I haven't got a place at all. But don't look in the mirror. Don't look in the mirror. It feels like the end, it's out of the van. Just please understand. Don't look in the mirror. Doubt is in the mirror. Face first, say your nonsense If everybody said I hate you, don't you think that they know better? Don't you think that they know better? If anybody said I hate you, don't you think that they know better? Don't you think they know you better? Your room looks cold and desolate, can barely hold this elephant. But even though we're here again, finding words is not our friend. You've told me of the tears you've shed, suffocated, filled with dread. And though you say I'm helping now, it's hard to see exactly how. It's never easy, never fair. Scattered pieces fill the air of hasty pictures that you drew, with memories you'd rather lose. You can't see all the damage it does, and I haven't got a place at all. But don't look in the mirror. Don't look in the mirror. It feels like the end, and it's out of hand. Just please understand. Don't look in the mirror. Death is in the mirror. Face first, see your nonsense Don't get what keeps shouting out? I hate you. Don't you think that they know better? Don't you think they know you better? Oh, 'cause I said I hate you. Don't you think that we know better? Don't you think we know you better?
Woo! That song is very fun. And yeah, those lyrics, the whole guitar part, I just feel that song has a lot of meaning behind it. I don't always get grabbed by it emotionally. I know some people do, and I really appreciate it.
but I've had that song in my head for like 3-4 years, even before we released it. So it's had a lot of time to give me feels. I've just sat with it a really long time. And so right now my journey is to perform that song and see what other people think of it. So definitely let me know what you think of that song, and not just like rating it, but like what is your interpretation of the message, and what stands out to you about it? Because I really do want to hear that, because that's why I do music. I want to know what people think of it, and you know, how people can connect with it. So and to what degree, because you know, for me, art is abstract enough that you have to be able to apply it in multiple circumstances. So even though you make a piece of art that has a specific meaning to it, somebody else can apply it in the context of their life, and it'll map, even if it doesn't match 100%. Like there's a line here or there that doesn't match up with what it works for them in their circumstance. If the majority of it does, and it's gripping to them, especially if it's using instruments and timbres that they identify with and really like rock instruments or jazz instruments, depending on how they were raised, it can be extremely impactful. And I've felt that. I know my bandmates have felt that, and I hope that you guys feel that and can get that out of some of our music. Some of the power, some of the sadness, the angst, the uncertainty, the just all of the emotions that we try to weave into our stuff, instrumentally and otherwise. I really hope you guys can connect with. And I do want to know if, you know, there's a specific meaning you get out of it that's really important to you. It could be bad, it could be good, it could be neutral, it could be clarity, it could just be a fun song to groove to. I just kind of want to know how you guys connect with it. The thing, Peron says, the thing that stands out to me is that this song somehow radiates love and empathy, and that's what I love about it so much. I really appreciate that, because for me, you know, people getting close to the message that I intend is always a little nicer for me, because that means that I'm communicating clearly, even though there's poetry and there's, you know, artistry behind it. That's how I hope the song always comes across, is that there's a love and empathy, because really the song is about caring for somebody who has the initial idea was an eating disorder. It could be, of course, it could be other things, but it's kind of worried about feeling, you know, like you're not helping, even though they say that you are. Even just your presence, you know, because people that you try to help sometimes, if you're in it for the long haul and they're having these issues and they're in a circumstance that you can't help them change and they can't really control, it can be very hard, because they're going to be going through stuff almost every day, and just being there can be a huge help. But as somebody who doesn't know that very well, or even if you do know that, it's still hard to internalize when they say you're helping and you feel like you're not, because their situation isn't getting better, but you're helping them hang on more, and you're helping them get through this situation to get to a point where they can change it, because sometimes it's just waiting it out, sometimes it's circumstance. And so there's a vein in this where, especially once you get to the chorus, you're kind of dead set on helping them. It's talking to them and saying, you know yourself best, because the line, "Don't you think they know you better," being sarcastically said. It's really I'm going to stick with you to the end, and I'm going to help you get better. And so the verses are mulling over that whole thing. In fact, let me see. I'm going to real quick try to pull up some of the lyrics. Let me throw on a display capture right here. You can see, ooh, we got a screeny boy. Okay, let's look up. I have different accounts. Oh no, you know. Okay. Mirror lyrics until we are on Rap Genius, just so you know. Haha. Check this. Or Genius. Sorry, it's called Genius now. I used it back when it was called Rap Genius. So, verse 1. The smell runs through the house again. It's barely even 10:30.
First line, right off the bat. Now, I want to go ahead, before I actually start on this, I do want to issue a slight, like, sensitivity, you could call it trigger warning kind of thing, about sensitive topics, like having an eating disorder. We are going to be talking about this a little bit as we go through the verse lyrics. Just know that it is done from the point of view of somebody hoping to help, and from somebody who doesn't have the condition and is just trying to help their friend. So there might be a kind of one-sided or ignorant view of how to handle it, and that's because it's from somebody who's trying to help somebody who's going through it, and trying to do it in a loving way, not in a way where they're like, hey, why aren't you getting better? It's in a way where you are just trying to be there for them, and you're kind of just questioning, because it's very hard to help them get better with it. You're kind of questioning, is what I'm doing helping? Smell, okay, so now that we've put that out there, the smell runs through the house again. It's barely even 10:30. So right off the bat, it's barely even 10:30, indicating, okay, these are people that stay up pretty late, because it's barely even 10:30, and then you're still, like, considering that early, because it's barely even. The smell runs through the house again. I don't think I've ever expressed this to anybody in particular, but that first line is a reference to somebody going through specifically bulimia. And so the smell is supposed to be them, partaking in that act, and kind of, basically spending time and hanging out with somebody who has it, and it happening. You're not in the room, but it's still, you can kind of barely detect the scent. And it could also be like the smell of the room or something, but that specific scent was what I was identifying, because it's indicative of the smell is in the house again. This is something that's been happening over and over, and it's indicative of their pain and the things that they're going through. And it's kind of dealing mentally with the fact that it's happening, and so you're just kind of recognizing it. And only shadows cross our minds. That's only dark thoughts are happening right now. I'd speak up if I had the spine. It's like, I don't want to address it. I just want to be there for you, is kind of the idea. But it's done in a way where it's saying, if I had the spine, I'm doing it kind of cowardly. So it's not recognizing, like, I just want to be there for you. We can get your mind off of it. It's more of a, I don't want to bring it up because I'm afraid you'll retreat into your shell kind of thing. The silence here is eloquent. And then it's talking about, just take me through the time you spent in the hell you'd like to call your home. So talking about the home life that they've had that maybe got them to this point or exacerbated it. And basically saying, just, tell me about it. Vent if you need to. It's harder to get by, so that's just kind of, recognizing, damn, that sucks. Like, it's very difficult trying to be the person that they can vent to. And then I really want to help you, Em. I know that you've been losing friends. This is kind of somebody who's maybe a little more introverted, doesn't have a lot of friends, and so they've kind of just been retreating. It's not like they've been doing anything bad, was my intention behind it. Of course, again, if you can apply this in another circumstance, go for it. But I kind of meant it as an introvert who's just kind of retreated a little bit and isn't interacting with their friends as much. And then they never saw those painful lines, just winter sweaters in mid-July. That's a line where the meaning is pretty out there. And it covers enough of a sensitive subject that I don't want to talk about it directly. But that last line means a lot to me. It's just really, this whole first verse is just about being with this person and trying to help them vent or talk about it if they need to, and having those conversations. And sometimes there is silence. There is a lot of silence in those conversations because you don't know what to say. But at the same time, you're their friend and you're there for them. And so when the chorus comes around, Also, it labels the vocal melody part. Don't look in the mirror. I just sung the harmony, I think. It labels that as the chorus, and the next part is the post-chorus. In the lesson video, I called this part the second half of the verse, the B structure, and then the post-chorus I called the chorus. So there's a little difference in how the people in the band think about it. But I personally see this part as the verse, but I guess it does have the chorus, the tagline for it. All right. So now I want to note right here. The verses were my contribution. I had choruses for the song when I brought it to the band, but they did not make it into the final part. So this chorus and post-chorus is all done by Sadie Ray. So please know that I don't have particular insight into anything that might have been personally put in by Ray. I can only give my estimation related to the meaning. So you can't see all the damage it does. That's basically saying, this is affecting you in ways that you don't realize. This is actually one important thing. You can kind of tell the switch in the voice, because the verses are very pulled back, like very, I don't want to intrude. This is for your benefit. I don't want to, impose any action upon you, like try to get you to fix something. I just want to be there for you. And you can see Ray kind of puts in a little bit more of like but this is what I would suggest kind of thing. So Ray's putting forth a little more of a direct idea. And so I'm kind of more, my verses I think more set the scene. And the choruses are more message oriented. So you can't see all the damage it does. You don't realize, I don't know, you might not realize all the ways that this is affecting you. And I haven't got a place at all. And that's actually a reference to the verse, because I haven't got a place at all. I'm not supposed to be giving you a prescription for what to do and how to fix it. But don't look in the mirror. And this is really, it's not an intrusive line. It's not, if you were to give advice like, say, you need to cut relationship ties with this person or whatever, and give all these specific steps, and you know what you need to do kind of thing, that would be a little harsh. But if you just say, don't look in the mirror, that's basically trying to say, look, this is partially a product of the situation you're in. And the best thing you can do right now is avoid putting yourself in situations where you have to confront these circumstances that you have no power over. You have no power that you might have a home life that isn't the best, that you have this condition that might be exacerbated by your home life, the people that you're forced to spend time with. So do what you can to avoid without making things worse, and do what you can to make sure you stay safe and sane in all of this chaos that's happening in your life. That's what the line, don't look in the mirror means to me in the context of the song. It feels like the end and it's out of hand. Just please understand. So saying, I know this has been going on for a long time. I know that it feels like everything's crushing down on you. And assuming that, referencing the verse, you're hanging out and this person's venting to you. And so maybe they're getting emotional or they're just reflecting on it. So, real quick, Prawn says, especially the don't look in the mirror, doubt is in the mirror. Hits me so hard every time, and I haven't been able to exactly put words why, but it's exactly what you just explained. Yeah, I'm very glad that hits. And oh gosh, the amount that people subjectively take in lyrics. Like, I do this a lot. A lot of my favorite bands, I will connect really strongly with lines and not know why, and then I read and I'm like, that's why. It's very rare that I read the lyrics and I'm like, oh, I don't like that message. I've had it happen a couple times, but especially when you can get a band that nails it almost every time, or an artist that nails it every time, where you get this feeling from the lyrics. You don't know why, but it just speaks to you. And then you read it, and it's exactly what you hoped it would be. It's something you couldn't even put into words, but it's what you hoped it would be. That's an amazing connection you can make with the band. And that's really what we hope. I'm so glad that we can evoke those feelings. So it's really amazing that we can do that. So thank you for listening. so much. That line was what made me cry the first time. Yeah. So feels like the end and it's out of hand. Just please understand, it feels like things are you're not in control. It feels like it's all coming down and you feel like you can't handle it anymore. And then it's just basically a don't hang on. Don't look in the mirror. Do what you can to keep yourself safe. And, you're always, and there's the implication, you're always safe with me. And then the next part, fall face first, see your worth, known since birth, don't get hurt. So these lines, as far as I can tell, are all sectioned, like they're all applying to different things. Fall face first. That, again, I don't know exactly what Ray meant, but I believe that might be either a reference to, it could be like, put your head in a pillow, don't look in the mirror, just keep yourself down and where you're safe. Fall face first could also mean how you're feeling. You feel like you're falling onto the ground, and saying, see your worth. So that's just kind of trying to reaffirm to them, like, you're amazing. Or you're good enough. Even that is extremely impactful if used properly. See your worth, known since birth. You've had this in you all along. You know that you're worthwhile. Or it could be a recognition that you have known you've had this problem since birth. So maybe there's a recognition that you've had to deal with this for a long time. There are a few different interpretations you could do there. And then don't get hurt, just kind of a reference to, keep yourself safe. And then this post-chorus, is a brilliant bit of sarcasm. I really like these lines. If everybody said I hate you, don't you think that they know better? It's like toxic people that are maybe putting you in these emotional states. They don't know what you've gone through. They do not know what it is like to be you, with all of the things that you have to deal with all of the circumstances you can't fight. And so people that are putting you down, or putting you in those situations, do not know what you're going through and can't fathom that you're not like them. And so you need to stand apart from them. And so it repeats the line, don't you think that they know better? Sarcastically, saying like, they don't know you better. It's a recognition that you are your own person. And if they are putting you down, they're not right, because they don't know the worth that you have, that everybody has since birth, the fundamental human dignity that comes with getting to live and getting to recognize that you deserve to lead a life and a good life. And, some of that is going to take effort on your part, but you shouldn't have to endure circumstances that are out of your control for too long. And so it's from the point of view of a friend, it's trying to get them to the point where they can take control. If that means, waiting until they're 18 so they can, move out or get a job or something. Being a friend and helping them get out of that circumstance is all you can do. And sometimes you can't contribute money. Sometimes you can only contribute your time and your attention. But just know that you know yourself better than anybody. And this friend knows you very well as well. They give you the charitable view that sometimes you can't see. And in fact, if anybody said, I hate you could be coming from you. It could be towards yourself. But just know you're included in that. You might not know the worth that you contain. Anyways, let's move on to the second verse. And then the chorus and the post-chorus are essentially the same. Oops, I accidentally got off. Except doubt is changed to death is in the mirror. So it's making the mirror more dangerous to look at. So it's just like, trying to persuade them more and more, like, don't look in the mirror. It's not going to do you any good. Maybe they've instilled in you this feeling of not being worth it. So you can't let them win by looking in the mirror and seeing bad things, seeing doubt, and seeing death in the mirror. All right, verse 2. Your room looks that should be looks. Your room looks cold and desolate. Can barely hold this elephant. So, your room looks cold and desolate. That might be like there's a sudden air. This is setting the scene again. Sudden air of like, oh shoot, this person's going through more. Like maybe they're venting more, and it could be that this is actually, I think, how I wrote it, because I wrote these lyrics a while ago. I believe I wrote this as you're kind of coming into their room, because before you were maybe in their living room, and maybe they had just, caused the smell to run through the house again. And now you're in their room, and you guys are just hanging out. Your room looks cold and desolate, and so you're kind of entering this new thing, and it can barely hold this elephant. So you can imagine like a small room, and you can imagine there's this big thing that you just don't want to talk about, this elephant. And it's the thing that they're going through, like in direct terms. You don't necessarily want to talk about it. You can talk about the circumstance that they're in, because that's out in the open. But the things that they're doing to cope or to just hang on, whatever that is, or even as punishment for themselves, because sometimes that's the motivation. You don't generally want to approach those directly. So Perron says, I love how that chorus really shows the sadness and the concern of the person who's worried about their friend as well. Through the don't look in the mirror line, because to me, it always sounds like a plea of, if you can walk away from this for now by not looking into the mirror, then please do. Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's like it just, stay away from it, because it's not going to help you. It's not giving you the image that you should be getting. And that could be because your view when you look into the mirror is polluted from not you, from other people. And maybe there is a part of you that is kind of, feels like you're not worthy. And some of that, like a very small portion of that might be, you're not doing all the things you should be doing. Maybe you aren't keeping things in, clean. You're not doing your homework. Some of the suffering is part of your fault. But a lot of this song is about how that shouldn't be enough to get you to the point where you hate yourself. And so some of that does come from other people, and you can't let them, you have to fight against that. Anyways, can barely hold this elephant. And so I really like, even in this first line of the second verse, that it's this cold and desolate room. And it's also, when you say the elephant line, you can tell it's a small room because it can barely hold an elephant. So it's barely bigger than an elephant. So it's not necessarily a giant room. And so it's closed in, it's cold, it's desolate. I always imagined it's messy. It's got backpacks and clothes and things just scattered about. It doesn't look like a particularly comfy place to be in. But even though we're here again, finding words is not our friend. Again, detailing the silence that sometimes happens when you're having a serious conversation with someone who's venting to you about something, or talking, or you're trying to get them to talk about it just so they can cathartically release things. Also kind of implies a tension in the air, doesn't it? Absolutely. That the elephant basically is like squeezing you both in on the walls of this room, of this small room. And so you kind of feel this tension of, a heaviness, a weight on both of you as you kind of weave around this subject. Finding words is not our friend. You've told me of the tears you've shed, so you've vented to me. You've told me about the things that have happened. You've shed, suffocated, filled with dread. I really like that line. You've told me of the tears you've shed, suffocated, filled with dread. It rhymes within itself. You see that one line rhymes shed and dread. I just really like it. So, yeah. I really like that you could stop it. You told me of the tears you've shed. But you emphasize suffocated, you're choking up on it. It kind of gives that image of somebody crying more, filled with dread, so you can tell it's something about the future, and like worried about how your life is going to go. And though this is the key line for me that I always connect with the most. And though you say I'm helping now, it's hard to see exactly how. That line means a lot to me, because I have had conversations with particular people in my life that are going through a lot of things, and I was their rock for a little while. And
you know, sometimes being there for them doesn't feel like enough, but it's all you can do. And sometimes you don't see how you're helping, but they tell you you are. And I've had a couple conversations like that with certain people, and it's the kind of thing where you feel helpless, but you know, because you hate to see your friend doing this, but there's nothing else you can do. And this is a cool one. It's never easy, never fair, and scattered pieces fill the air of hasty pictures that you drew. And I think the line is with memories you'd rather lose, because the idea is that you scrolled, you vented on it through an expression of art. You drew pictures on pieces of paper, and they're full of memories you'd rather lose. They're full of maybe the dark thoughts that you've gone through. And this could basically be interpreted as scattered pieces fill the air. So you've ripped them up. Maybe it could be in defiance of the drawings, or maybe you just can't deal with what they remind you of anymore when you drew them. So that was basically you've made, the whole idea is you made a physical manifestation of the things that are tormenting you, and then you've ripped them up and thrown them into the air, like you're done with them. So there is a vein of that could be them starting to try and move past it a little more. But it could also be like, I don't want to see them. So there's a couple of different ways you can take that. But given that the song itself is trying to help them, the hope is that it's them maybe starting to depart from some of that pain. Even if they don't stop drawing those pictures or writing those songs or doing any of that, it's important that as a friend who's trying to help them through, that you don't overstep, but you try to get them to, you know, see a positive side every now and again. And having them rip up, you know, I wouldn't want anybody's art to get ripped up, but having them rip up things that are indicative of pain, it's not necessarily, you know, of your own pain, it's not necessarily the worst idea every time. And then, yeah, chorus. You can't see all the damage it does. It's basically got a similar context. This is more the prescriptive, what's happening. So, also, I should mention the last two lines of the verse. If I remember correctly, actually, the scattered pieces fill the air of hasty pictures that you drew. It could also be interpreted as it's around us. You know, this hate that you've built up and expressed in art. Is kind of hanging all around us. It was a very imagery drawn line. I made that specific sentence or you know, half stanza, quarter stanza, third stanza. I made that specific part to be very invoking of an image. I just imagine little shreds of paper flying through the air, and for some reason I imagine them shimmering like glass, even though, you know, I always imagine them to be from a scrapbook. It's kind of like it gives it this surreal atmosphere. So yeah, and then you've got the kind of prescriptive, you know, this is all I can do to try to help you get through this. You know, this is my advice. And then we keep shouting out, I'd hate to. Don't you think that they know better? Oh, why keep shouting out, I'd hate to? So that maybe that's, so this is, okay, now I have to dissect Ray's lyrics. Okay. Why keep shouting out, I'd hate to? So that's got to be referencing to the person. I'd hate to. So they would be saying, I'd hate to. Maybe because it's like, I'd hate to not look in the mirror. It could be that. I'd hate to, because if you're saying don't look in the mirror, that's might be partially a metaphor for, hey, don't pay attention to those people that are toxic. And so if you tell that to somebody and, you know, say, try not to interact with those people. Sometimes they can't. Sometimes they're stuck with those people, and saying, you know, not talking to your, you know, bully or your mentally, you know, abusive parent or whatever, not talking to them will make it worse. You know, saying, why keep shouting out, I'd hate to? Don't you think that they know better? So it's kind of a counter, like, look, I know it's not the best solution to not talk to them, but you need to be able to have a space and a time when you feel
like you are safe to express your pain, your happiness, any of that, and they aren't contributing to that. So even though it might make it worse in some instances, you need to give yourself time to not deal with them. And then the next line is in the previous post chorus, it's if everybody said, if anybody said. So it's a very similar line. Whereas in the post chorus 2, the second line is, because no one said I hate you. Don't you think that we know better? Don't you think that we know you better? Yeah, that's like, it's really just no one said I hate you. That might be the people in the room. And this, this could be, this last line could be a, hey, you're with me, maybe one other person, because in the verse it doesn't specify, it's just you and them. But it could be. This is saying no one has said I hate you. We all are on your side. We don't hate you. We love you, and we know you better because you don't think you have this worth, this value. And I can tell you, from the 2 or 3 of us here, we know the value that you have, and it's the one time where maybe don't you think that we know better isn't sarcastic. So yeah, it's a song. That's been Mirror Mirror. So thank you very much. I'm gonna disable that, bring back the chord chart. Thank you so much for joining. I'm glad we got to do a little bit of the lyric analysis as well, because the song means a lot to all of us in the band, really. So thank you for caring. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining and keeping me company. Thank you, Parand. Special shout out. So yeah, there's I hope my me putting forth what I meant by it didn't corrupt any meaning that you had already attached to it, because again, we don't make this art necessarily with an intent like I want people to interpret it like this. We don't have a mess like, okay, side note, we played a gig at one point where there was a guy that said, what's your message? What do you want to convey to people? And it's like, what statement do you want to make? And the bands that we were playing with at this gig specifically were very like counterculture, like very Rage Against the Machine, like trying to inspire people to get involved in something, or be rebels or whatever. So somebody opened my door. However, our message is we want you to take away from this art what you can, and in any form that it's useful. You can apply it, you can take some parts of it, because here's the thing. If you make a good product, if you make something that's a good piece of art, you should be able to find meanings within meanings. You can find a discrete meaning within a paragraph or a stanza or a sentence, or a melody, an instrumental part. You can find meaning in it that isn't necessarily cohering with the rest of the message in the full song that was originally intended. But you can find value in that discrete meaning as well. You can find value even by excluding certain parts. The art can be better. And, the message that we put into this song is one thing, but it's not the only valid interpretation, because that's our take on this whole theme and this whole style when we made this song. So take from it what you most identify with. This is the message that I personally thought of. However, and Ray, and what Ray thought of as well. However, use it in your life, because that's really what it's about, is that you need to be able to, if you're going to make something useful, it has to be useful in the context of your own life. That's how you help people. I think you have to adapt your information and your help for their circumstance. And sometimes that means cutting back on your own message, or letting them, remove parts mentally and take what they need from it, as long as it's constructive. So thank you so much. It's been great. And we will see you next week. I do not know if I will be back next week, so you'll just have to join us on Saturday. And then make sure that you follow us everywhere: Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, friggin', I think we're on Facebook still. There's a lot of different places. Sign up for our email listing. And then, yeah, we'll see. I don't think we specified what song I might do next, depending on the song that we do. But yeah, check out our Patreon. Share us with your friends. And check out the Christmas release, the 4 cover songs that we did. And hopefully they will be out on other platforms than SoundCloud. Because the last time I checked, they weren't out. We're just waiting for it to process, as far as I know. So you should get those on Spotify, on Apple Music, on Pandora, everything. So, and we are on Spotify. So just so you know, check us out there. Thank you so much. And I think that's it for today. Hope you have a good day. Stay safe. And remember the worth that you have inherently, because I believe in it. That might sound cheesy, even if I've not met you in person, but I believe in it. Look, you deserve just as much respect and love as anybody in any normal circumstance. Whatever your circumstances are, we care for you. And we put this art out to hopefully help you get through whatever you're going through.